Awesome. It's Rohan Patel, comic book movie. Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
Hi, Rohan. I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm a huge fan. Kingsman, I love that, and just of your entire so many films that I could talk about. But you're really great in Cruella, and I guess I'll just get rolling. But your character, he's essentially like the most pivotal character. He has like the big plot twist that's kind of throws like the movie on his head. So like when you don't get like like initially you don't have that much screen time in like the first half of the movie and then until this moment. So when you don't have that much screen time to kind of establish your character, like versus like what you have in Shazam, how do you approach that kind of like when you have just a few scenes that you have to nail this character versus when you're like in the whole movie?
Well, in that case, you have to trust the director. I was a big fan of Craig Gillespie, for his previous films, Lars and the Real Girl and I, Tonya. So when we had a meeting, I hadn't even read the script. I didn't know what I was, doing in it. But he just met me and said, "Listen, I want you to be in it, and I want you to play this part." And then I read the script and realized that, as you say, he doesn't really do a great deal for the first half of the movie. And then there is this kind of plot twist. But he explained to me that he needed there were two things going on. He needed someone to have a presence, so it's a character that you remember, somebody you constantly think, who is that guy, what's he thinking, what's going on, so that when the twist happens it has some sort of resonance. And I think also he was playing on my fact that I've played so many villains, and people obviously might be coming to the film thinking he's bound to be the bad guy, and actually it's much more interesting than that.
Yeah, that's it. Like you said, you have played a lot of villains, but you've also played like the characters like Merlin, characters like John that have this like incredible warmth to them. Like which side do you find like more interesting to play, like the villain or the good guy?
Well, if I'm honest, the villain's a bit, because the good guy, you can be the good guy in real life. I can be a kind father, I can be a loving husband, I can be a friend, and I can do that in my everyday life. But I can't, fire electricity out of my eyes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Or get hung and come back from the dead, as I did in Sherlock Holmes. There's just more fun to be had with the villains.
yeah. And so like you're talking to Craig in this initial meeting, like you don't get that much backstory either. Are you like creating your own backstory before you come on set, or is that something you guys kind of like discussed?
He didn't really. He explained to me that he's the right hand man of the Baroness, and the British butler or valet is a very traditional role. He's basically loyal and discreet, and so essentially that was all I was really required to be. It's when you have the flashback and realize that something was asked of him years ago that kind of bonds them together. He stayed with her out of loyalty, but obviously underneath there's been something going on with him that then kind of comes to fruition when you know Cruella or Estella turns up. It's difficult to talk about though, because obviously it's a sort of pivotal point in the film, so I don't really want to give anything away.
Yeah, no, understandable. And so you also play, you kind of have to play the straight man in this movie, and where you're also playing that in like a movie like Grimsby, where you're opposite like Sacha Baron Cohen, which is I can't imagine what that kind of experience is like. So when you see like Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, kind of just like these larger than life characters, how much fun is that? Just like playing opposite that.
Oh, it's great fun, because they're really lovely people, and I've really enjoyed being on set with them and watching them work. So that was a real privilege. I also think you have to make a choice when you come in with a part like this. And the same is true of Grimsby. You got to work out where the comedy lies, where it lies. I mean, there wasn't really. I quickly realized in Grimsby that I just let Sasha do the gags, and actually, the straighter I played it, the funnier it would be.
Yeah.
And the same is kind of true of Cruella. If Emma was the Baroness is doing this very arch performance, and Estella is also being very arch, the way to go is not to if you're all doing it, it becomes uninteresting. So I think I made the choice to root him, to ground him in some sort of reality, so that when you then see the plot the plot thing that happens, halfway through the movie, you believe it.
Hmm. And so like you've been working for decades now, and so what kind of like what attracts you to like a part like what projects do you want to pursue? Like, is there a certain type of character that you have yet to play that you're looking forward to?
I love conflicted characters. I mean, I suppose every actor would say that. I don't know, but personally, I like characters who have something that they're fighting. You know, that there's good and bad in all of us, I think. So if you can find a character that is written well enough to be able to have both of those things going on, then that's always way more interesting. And having played a lot of villains, I've always tried to find something in them that makes them, if not liked, then at least understood, you know.
Mhm.
But dealing with inner demons and stuff like that, I conflicted characters is something that I really I gravitate to. I'm not as comfortable with somebody who's just, you know, easygoing husband, father, brother, lover. You know, that's not really my cup of tea.
Mhm. Yeah, and I guess Cruella is sort of like you could tell another story in this universe, but you haven't done a lot of sequels. So like one of your best like performances was in Green Lantern. You got to play Sinestro, which was everyone loved it, but obviously there was no follow up. But then so when you're approaching like Dr. Savannah or someone like that, do you go in it's like I have to leave it all on the table where I can't save anything for a next film just in case there isn't one?
Oh yeah, you can only take it one film at a time, and usually
Hmm.
when you go and do the first film, the second one hasn't even been written yet. So even though you're
Yeah.
signed up, you know, to do sequels, they won't exist. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of it is based on what happens in the first one. The irony, of course, is that everything that I survive in doesn't seem to have had a sequel, and everything I get killed in does. You know,
Yeah.
so as Sinestro, they didn't make a Green Lantern 2, but I survived in John Carter. But unfortunately, they didn't make a second John Carter. You know, Kick-Ass got a sequel, but obviously I was blown off a balcony.
Yeah.
And there's one other, I think, where I survive and it didn't go to a sequel. I can't think what it is off the top of my head, but anyway, there's a sort of strange irony to that. And I don't do jobs, I don't take on things because there are sequels at all. Usually you just take it on because you like that individual script. And
Mhm.
if there are others, so be it.
Yeah, and then two of my favorite directors that you've worked with, Matthew Vaughn and Guy Ritchie. Are there You've done so many like rock and roller Sherlock Holmes and Kingsman. Stardust is a really underrated gem.
Yeah.
And so like is there anything in the works with those guys? Do you keep constant conversation like maybe something because he's doing stuff with I guess Jason Statham right now, but it's like,
Sure.
oh, is there a part for me or something?
Yeah, I mean, Guy and I text each other occasionally, and you know, I'm if he finds something for me to do, I'll be there. And the same is true of Matthew. You know, I mean, we never know. There is a Kingsman 3, and in that
Yeah.
universe, despite the fact that I've been blown to pieces, it doesn't necessarily mean he's out of the running because anything can happen in that
Yeah.
universe. And that, you know, I've worked with both of those guys about 3 times each, I think.
Mhm.
And the reason you work with people is because, you know, you get on with them. So who knows, there may be something further down the line with either of them. But I love working with new people wherever possible as well, you know. And the variety is what I'm interested in. So doing a big studio picture like Cruella, and getting the chance to work with Craig Gillespie, and or something
Mhm.
like, you know, Shazam, working with David, who came from sort of small horror movies. It's all interesting, you know, it's all fascinating, and I try and mix it up as much as possible.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was just looking through your resume. It's very, very you've gone all over the place and it's really interesting. I think the movie you made with Paul Rudd recently, I really enjoyed that too. The catcher,
Yeah,
or sorry, I can't remember the
yeah,
title, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't want to keep it too long. But so like you've also like you started doing television like early in your career, and then you've kind of got back into it recently. Is that something that you can see yourself doing more of as the
Well,
start,
it seems
like
that
your
when I
next
started
decade of
out,
your career? Or
well, the truth is, when I started out, I did theatre for kind of 10 years,
Mhm.
and there wasn't really much of a British film industry, nor were many people going over the pond to work in the States. So uh, there weren't that many films around. It was quite difficult to get into a movie. It's actually quite difficult to get into television back in those days because there weren't, you know, loads of streaming services, nor were there loads of channels. There wasn't much getting made. So it was mainly theatre. I then moved into television a bit because that was getting in front of a camera. And it was only after doing television for a while that I thought, actually, I want to make movies. You know, and then I got into
Mhm.
the movies, And I did that for years and years and years before I did another bit of television. But what's happened now is it's come around. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the film writers have moved to television, and a lot of the film actors have moved to television as well. So television has become a really important medium, especially with all the advent of the streaming services and all these new platforms. So there's a lot of work around in TV. I think the trick is, though, finding the good stuff, because I think there's a lot of stuff being made that we'll never see. So it's a way of working with the best people and finding the best writing. But having said that, I'm very keen also to carry on making movies. And as we are at a point where people are maybe going back into the cinema now, finally, I want to make sure, because Cruella deserves to be on a big screen. I mean, it's as simple as that. Fantastic soundtrack, huge set pieces, costumes, everything. It needs to be on a big screen, and people need to go back into the cinema. So I'm hoping to carry on doing the movies, as well as I have my own show on TV, and maybe do another series of that.
Yeah. Can't wait for people to see Cruella. It's really fun, and hopefully we can see you in Shazam 2 and Kingsman 3 and everything. But this has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Nice to talk to you.
It was nice talking to you too.